Golden Kamuy. In my totally non-biased opinion, the best and greatest anime to have ever been created, and dare I say, criminally underrated by the wider anime community. It's one of those stories that isn't afraid to go full balls to the walls insane, but at the same time still manages to hold a much deeper meaning behind most of it. I said most, okay. All of this is then drenched in blood, dick jokes and good food shared with the best of friends, who just might turn around in a heartbeat to skin you alive. You know, like friends do. It's one of those faux historical narratives that I absolutely love, and this one manages to capture the feeling of its time perfectly. It's the end of Japan's Meiji era that saw great change both in the country and its people. It was an age marked with great turmoil that forced everyone to adapt with the times and become the face of their culture's future. The story itself is a wild treasure hunt with the highest of stakes, but amidst the blood-chilling cruelty and tension, the show captivates the spirit of Hokkaido, its wilderness and the hearts of its people. And as much as I may love it, I will try to make an effort to mention the not-so-great aspects as well. Yes, the bear included. And now for your per video dosage of the mandatory substats. Sorry, but these stats are still in fact terrible. I promise to stop doing these if the channel ever hits 10k, so to get rid of my irritating statistics, do hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the content. And now back to the scheduled programming of Golden Kamuy, my favourite anime of all time. Like any other anime, it isn't perfect, but it's one of those action-adventure seinen that happens to tick all the right boxes for my tastes. The show takes place in the frozen north of Hokkaido at the dawn of the 20th century, a period when the samurai of old would take the train and tiny Japan had just emerged victorious from a modern war fought against the Western power. It's an age of heightened national pride, but also of division. The people no longer need their warriors, and in its rush to modernize, the country has all but forgotten its past and traditions. And then there are the Ainu, the indigenous people of the north who Japan now refuses to accept into its society. Not that most of them would much care for it either, but one must adapt to the world they now live in. And this clash of cultures and ideologies, not only between the Japanese and the Ainu, but also within communities and even between nations, plays a pivotal role in the story of Sugimoto Saichi, a man immortal. Or at least pretty close to, and one of our main characters. We first meet Sugimoto as a scarred man panning for gold some 10 years too late in an effort to fulfill a promise made to a comrade lost. Which now reminds me that this isn't actually the first time we meet him, since this is also the immortal Sugimoto. But that's not really relevant, so back to the river where Sugimoto is still panning for gold and listening to a drunk old man tell a story, funnily enough, about gold. Lots of gold, hidden presumably somewhere in the Hokkaido wilderness. It is a fairly mad tale that basically encapsulates the entire premise of the show. There is a huge treasure to be found and a map leading to it, tattooed on 24 now escaped prisoners. Find them and you'll find the gold. This then sets off a new secret gold rush in Japan's frozen north, featuring Sugimoto and the Ainu girl Ashirpa along with other rather unique individuals, some of whom are after the gold and others, well, have some more rather sinister motivations. They are a collection of madmen, survivors, warriors and cowards, who together manage to create one of the most varied yet unified casts in all of anime. And at this point it's become traditional that I talk about one of the characters in a little bit more detail, and in terms of Golden Kamuy, there is only really one option. Lieutenant Tokushiro Tsurumi, the main antagonist of the story. The man is charismatic, charming, and manipulative in equal measure, a true psychopath that can switch from a polite and affable officer to utterly batshit insane in the blink of an eye. He is an inspiring leader of men who commands respect both through the love his soldiers have towards their leader and by his cold, uncaring cruelty should one fail to meet his expectations. And as much as we might love Sugimoto's warm and fatherly demeanor or Ogata's cold killer instinct, Tsurumi is the one character in the show who steals the floor every single time he's on screen, which honestly is even more of an achievement when you realize just how well done all of the characters are. From the insane to the relatively sane, the cast of Golden Kamuy are all phenomenal. You have the soldiers with their combat trauma and the shared experience of the horrors of war, but still each of them had a different experience prior and ever since. And the soldiers are by no means the only example of this. Someone like the fierce Hijikata Toshizo couldn't be more different from, say, Shiraishi, despite both of them being of the tattooed prisoners. The two share no similarities beside that one experience and their connection to Nopperabo, the mysterious tattoo artist. Honestly, I could sit here for hours detailing each of the characters, and I might just do that in a later video, but this is not the time or the place for it. Just know that the show takes its time to explore each and every one of them, their pasts, presents, goals, dreams and ambitions, to a degree where you can't help but to feel connection to every single one, which further helps to immerse you in their stories. The first season of which predominantly focuses on the fatherly bond that Sugimoto builds with Ashirpa, as well as the exploration of the Ainu culture, with the second one more focused on the other characters and their conflicting goals, even as they work together to achieve the same end result, be it for vastly different reasons. Creating some amazing dynamics with their extremely divergent band of treasure hunters, dynamics which then carry over into the third season that looks more into the consequences of the Russo-Japanese War as seen from the Russian side. And finally, what should be the penultimate season and currently the freshest one that neatly returns back to the prisoners, and most importantly, the gold. All of this is of course just a very cursory glance at the surface of what the anime has to offer, as it seamlessly, or at least almost seamlessly, hops from if not genre then at least from a theme to another, between or sometimes within episodes, and naturally there is a lot of that promised action and adventuring, but besides it you get the long segments of what could only be described as slice of life, focused on world building and further cementing the historical nature of it all, and then there is food. A lot of food. So much so that parts of the anime are really more of a gourmet show. These scenes involving food are also used as the great unifier, as the characters, often gathered around the same cooking fire, are little more than allies of convenience, and as such there is little friendship to be had between them. That is, until they are slowly brought together over the numerous meals they share. Mind you, brought together, but not to a point where they would all actually stand as one. Something that becomes increasingly apparent as the story progresses and the tensions rise. The feeling of tension being something that Golden Kamuy does almost like no other. It's one of those rare anime where the potential of great violence manages to stay ever present, while still not disrupting the great pacing that switches from gore and cruelty to the peace and beauty of nature. It's the uncertainty of it all that makes the tension work so well. That happy moment of food and friendship might turn to bloodshed at any moment, or it might not. All of this is incredibly well done, and even more importantly, well utilized as a tool for the viewer to connect with the story, the world, and the characters. But what isn't all that well done is the visual side, especially of the early stages of the first season, arguably the most critical part. Most of this critique is focused around the bear, but it encompasses everything else to do with the use of cheap CGI in the first season as well, since it looks frankly terrible. Even if it doesn't ruin the show, I must admit that it nearly put me off Golden Kamuy entirely when I first saw it. I have nothing against CGI in anime per se, and if done well it can even look stunning. I mean, just look at last year's Trigun Stampede, but the combination of the somewhat tight budget and the show's directors insisting on using CGI to make the animals stand out resulted in, well, this. The only saving grace being that the anime does very quickly abandon the use of CGI and ends up being far better for it. It's still not an animation masterpiece, but Geno Studio and later Brains Base did a perfectly adequate job of it, and the style does manage to hit most of the right notes, especially in the humor department. And something I do have to applaud, you can't really tell when the change of studio happens, as both did a stellar job of adapting the rather unique style of the manga. And speaking of unique things adapted from the manga, the humor in Golden Kamuy can be a bit of an acquired taste. And I'd go so far as to say that whether or not you like it is the make or break point that will determine if this is the show for you. And while there is so much more to Golden Kamuy than the raunchy and sometimes even crude poo-poo pee-pee jokes, you also cannot escape it. And if the prospect of naked men, lots of naked men, is not funny to you, then chances are that you will not enjoy the anime, at least not to its fullest potential. Which is a crying shame, since the show contains some very important messages that even go beyond just entertainment. All in all, the show isn't perfect, and certain major aspects of it are both unorthodox and not universally enjoyed, but if you can laugh at big burly men playing sumo as an excuse for something a little more carnal, and can appreciate the balance of peace and violence, or just want some really damn good faux historical seinen, then Golden Kamuy is the show for you. 9 out of 10 for purely technical execution, and 11 out of 10 for enjoyment. Cheese absolutely recommends. And with that, thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that. If you did, hit that subscribe button, like this if you liked it, and dislike if you didn't. And if you really like this, you can always become a channel member. Leave your thoughts and praise for the single greatest anime ever made in the comments below as a worthy sacrifice to the algorithm god. And check the links in the description if you want to engage with me outside of YouTube, you know, Twitch, Twitter, and the like. With this, I have been Cheese, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta for now.